Hey everyone, welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Ryan Selvey, and I am so pleased and honored to have Aundre Larrow with us today. We'll be going over some really great practices and procedures for small business owners alike, or just anyone who has a interest in photography and being able to really elevate your photography in Lightroom. So I'm really excited to have him. Welcome to the show.
I Could you give me like a more excited intro? I feel like because we haven't seen each other in a while, that felt kind of drab. So
Should
I'm
I do like a
gonna,
little spin?
yeah, okay, good.
Welcome back. My name's Ryan Selvey, and I am here with Aundre Larrow. I am so excited. We're going to be getting ready to elevate your business with some really great tips that you can follow. How's it going, Aundre? Welcome to the show.
Wow, Ryan, so great to hear from you. Well, right now I'm live and the hurricane is blowing all over the place, but I have tips for you that cannot be stopped. So now we're gonna start
Cannot be
in.
stopped.
No, what's up, everybody? I am happy to be back. My name's Aundre Larrow. I'm a Brooklyn-based visual artist, which is a fancy way of saying I'm a photographer and a director. Um, my first tip for you is to use words people understand. Visual artist is something I'm trying to work out of my vocabulary, just because I want to make sure that it's clear for my fellow artists what I do and clear for potential clients what my services are. So we're going to talk about business today, but first I want to talk about who I am a little bit. So if you don't know who I am, or if you don't know who Ryan Selvey is, Internet Maven, you can know why we're qualified to talk about this, and you can also feel comfortable to ask us questions not only about our background, but also the tips that we're sharing. So, on my end, you can see that I have Lightroom open right now, but we're actually going to start on Instagram because I like a reluctant self-promoter. Like I mentioned before, I'm a photographer and a director. So you look at some of my recent work. I got to photograph Steve Martin and Martin Short for a Wells Fargo job earlier this year. They are not Wells Fargo. I wouldn't call a small business, but the same principles of how you work with a firm of a few people to many people. I'm a big fan of getting reps. And so as a photographer, when I first moved to New York a little bit over a decade ago, I worked with local backpack brands, local underwear brands, local sunglasses brands. And I would say that that period of time, like getting to understand what people needed for social, really helped me to be able to work with bigger clients and work quickly now. Some other work of mine, last year I got to photograph Quavo for an alcohol brand. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about alcohol, so I'm just going to kind of glaze over this quickly. Um, and one brand we're going to talk about today is a small business in New York called Bird Collective. And last year, I directed a short about how being outside and birding is accessible to everyone.
It's
The
really taken
number one
off
thing
lately too.
yeah, bird
Like
watching.
birding,
Are you a
just in
big,
general.
you big bird
Not
guy, Ryan?
I'm marrying into a family that is very big birders. I was raised by someone who's terrified of birds, so it's like worlds coming together. But I noticed even just with friends, in general, everyone's getting into birding. I feel like it's this
I would
new. Maybe we're
argue,
just getting older.
yeah, everyone is getting older. I'm not a big bird person.
Yeah.
Birds are kind of big and scary, and I don't like that they have the advantage they have. Like in the words of Obi-Wan, I have the higher ground. I'm not really into
Yep.
that.
They have
So
the aviary advantage. Also, I do really want to say hello to everyone that's over in the chat over in Adobe and Behance. Good to have you guys here. We have Malashi, RB, Paloma, Robert, Paco, and it's good to see you guys. And then as well over on the YouTube chat as well. Make sure you hop in, have any questions, whether they're bird related, photography related. We're here for you. We're live. Or if you're
I
watching the
will have
replay,
no answers to your
good
bird
to have you.
questions. No bird questions,
Andre will have
please.
all of them.
But Ryan will interrupt me at any point for any of your questions, so feel free to ask them. I made a decision a little bit ago to stop watching the chat while I stream because I get distracted very easily.
That's what I'm
But
here
without
for.
any further ado, yeah, this is some of my work. In last couple of years, I worked with brands like Lululemon. I've done projects with Apple, with Google, with Samsung, with the New York Times. There's like a lot of things I'm really proud of. And I would say that the experience of working with small businesses as well as being a small business myself gives me some tips that can help you kind of understand how Lightroom specifically is a really helpful tool for you, not only to edit your photos, but to keep them organized, to have access to them on all your devices. Oh, wait, there's another device. I purposely had more than one so I could make this little analogy. Um, and so we're going to get into it without any further ado.
That's great.
So,
Also, Malachi, sorry for saying Maleshi. Um, it's still I still got my
Said
coffee. We're going with it.
Malashi.
I said Malashi, it's
Ryan.
okay. But okay, my first question for you, Andre, is that you
Yeah.
just went through a few different examples of some really great products, but they were all very different. You went from
Yeah.
underwear to Apple to I think you said sunglasses. You had
hmm
alcohol in there. How do you navigate between so different like categories of products? And do you feel like you still approach them in similar ways, or do you have distinct approaches to different products?
So I'm going to give you the easy answer, and I'm going to give you the difficult answer. And that's kind of going to be our rhythm today. So an easy answer is that advertising is all about displaying a need. So in my mind, good advertising is about displaying a need. Bad advertising in my mind is about creating a need because that furthers consumerism. So good advertising will say, hey, you know what? You're birding a lot. You move to a new place. You want to wear some clothes that let people around you know what you're really excited about. Awesome, right? It just says, hey, this is a need that you might have, instead of if you don't wear this birding shirt, no one's gonna like you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
we should peel back from that. So I would say that I always try to go in and ask the same couple questions. Number one of my client, what is your need? We call it our what is the value proposition of your product, right? So why is your product important in space? So years ago, I used to work at a startup called Walker and Company, and we had memorized this. I believe it was we make quality health and beauty products for people of color. And the idea was growing up in poor neighborhoods in inner cities, you'll see the same health and beauty stores with like the worst looking products with the worst ingredients in them. And so making something that was better for the community was really, really exciting. So the proposition was we make a strong product for a target market that's generally ignored, right?
Yep.
Um, when we
I also
look
remember you
at
had some tutorials of getting natural and effective skin tone for photographing and editing. I remember that was like maybe like 2 years ago or so. But
oh,
that's also something
it
you guys
never
can check out on
stops.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's totally can check out on YouTube. I will Discord or text that link to you, Ryan, if you could drop it in the chat. But yeah, basically on the shorter end, it's about identifying the value proposition and then understanding what they're trying to highlight. On the more difficult end, products are really different. So since Ryan and I are both adults, we're both over 21, I'm going to talk about alcohol for a second because I think this is a good example. Alcohol is a very difficult thing to photograph because there are laws and rules as to how we make sure we do it safely. So when you're photographing alcohol, I now know this because I've done lots of different ads for it. You can't have anything that will seem like gambling. So no cards, dominoes, like things like that. You need to have only a certain number of cans or things of alcohol in relation to the number of people there to not promote binge drinking. Everyone needs to look not over 21, but over 25. Like there's all these specific things. So I would say if you're trying to get into the business of a product that you currently aren't photographing, it could be really helpful to try to find a local photographer, director, and say hello to them and try to work with them once or twice because there's ins and outs, not just what you're making, but all of the kind of politics around it. So, for
Now, with
example,
that, did
mhm,
you have like legal consult on the site for photo shoots, or was that something you had to have with research before going into it?
you get legal consult. You also get like a pretty serious conversation with brand ahead of time that kind of talks to you about what you can and can't do. The reason
Right.
for that is they're trying to keep you um, from doing anything that they can't use. Because what's the point in them
Yeah,
paying for a beautiful image and they can't do anything with it? So
makes
like
sense.
we'll just pull up these kind of small business things we did height of the pandemic. So quick little tip for the folks if you are photographing any sort of beverage. You ever wonder why they always look wet? It's not just water because water beads off. What I learned on this shoot was you mix glycerin, like a little bit of this like some sort of like gelatin sugar thing with water, and you spray it and it'll hold on there. And so the cans, the bottles, whether it's a Sprite or anything, can just look like a little bit more appealing. And that's harder to Photoshop later because as you can see, each of these little drips will then kind of warp the can or the bottle a little bit, and that can be very difficult for you to add in post. We are going to be
Right.
touching on post today, but to Ryan's question, as you're like learning how to work um, as a small business or with small businesses, it first starts understanding what the value proposition is. And so, like with this particular brand, it was a younger audience, so casting models that were like 25 to 32, that were outdoors, that were enjoying each other's company. But you can notice after we talked about not having numerous bottles and cans, there's only one can per person. That's like a little alcohol thing to keep
Oh,
in mind for
interesting.
the future.
No one's double fisting or
Sometimes
anything.
Nope, it's a max of two per person because that way we're
Mm,
not saying like they want to always avoid the like person drinking alone
yep.
because then it might have us think too hard about what alcohol actually does. So getting out of alcohol to make sure that I don't get in too much trouble and getting
No,
back
but there
to
is
our
something to be
yep.
said about like even with these specific rules, like
Hmm.
whether it's both from a legal standpoint or even from just a perception of like maybe it's not necessarily even like illegal or against standards to
Hmm.
have someone drink alone. Like it would be like that would not be great for the photo shoot. I see over
No.
in the chat that Pluma is saying that she never would have thought of that, but it makes perfect sense. And then Voodoo Val is also saying, I'm so interested in photography tricks like that. And I think she's referring also to being able to spray the cans with glycerin because, it's like the age old kind of industry example of like using mashed potatoes for ice cream.
Oh,
But
I can give
there's
some
a bunch of
more
different
while we're
stuff.
on it. Food,
Yeah.
so I will say food and alcohol, all like food stuff related things are much more difficult than they seem. So
Right.
there are some tremendous photographers I'm friends with, like my friend Janelle Jones. Shout out to Janelle. Years ago, we worked together as temps.
Okay.
And it's amazing that now we're both professional photographers. She is awesome. And so much of her life is like suspending um, tiny items all over the place. And it requires a skill set that's maybe not the easiest. So if I actually show you, here's another vaguely alcohol related thing. We did this thing very quickly for these are not retouched at all. I'm purposefully showing these so I can kind of talk about the before and afters. But even just working with alcohol, understanding
Whoa, that blue.
something as small as making sure that um this drink illuminates properly. We have a specific light just on that, on like a little snoot, which is essentially like a little kaleidoscope where the light just shoots straight through, illuminates the blue. And then we're just working to make a hard shadow here and a hard shadow here to shape it. Just because so often when you look at different drinks, like you want to be able to see how it looks, and things often look lighter, so you can see that level of detail. Something
Hmm.
else to let you know on anything that's soda related, whatever. Often fake ice is used because the amount of time it will take to capture it. So if, let's say it's a Pepsi or Coca-Cola, it's going to dilute too quickly. And if you think about how bright the lights are, it's going to cause condensation on the glass and things that you can't control. And so much of our jobs when we're working with small businesses is controlling as many things as possible so things can go well. Another
Absolutely.
trick years ago, I was on a health and beauty shoot. We were photographing with a razor, and the prop stylist, that's the person who's in charge, or the head of art department, who's in charge of making sure the props, the cans, the bottles, the shaving cream, everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. Put the razor into the razor blade holder without telling me, so I sliced my hand.
Oh,
So,
man. Okay.
one thing I would tell you is not only do you want to go slow and do you want to talk to your clients, but you also just want to make sure that everyone that you're working with is very clear as to what you're trying to do. Because if it's not clear, you're going to spend a lot of time doing work that it can be hard to make up. Clients are very happy to do things in post that aren't their critical product. So getting back to our value proposition, right? This I think this is a test photo, but if you see the image that we ended up taking, the focus is very much on this glass, on what's being made. And so let's say the photo I took is out of focus. Like, yes, we can sharpen it, and we're going to talk about that in Lightroom. But if we aren't focused on the main thing, the main idea, the main story, we're not going to get that. And so I would say as we like stop in for like tip two, so tip one was all about kind of art. Tip two is after you ask your client what your value proposition is, I always like to ask them two things. This shoot will be successful if, and I let them fill that in. And so sometimes they'll say, like, if we get this cool photo, or if we get enough images that'll fit for this billboard. And then the second thing I like to ask is, you'd be upset if you left this without. And sometimes the answer is the same, but often it just gives them like a second to really focus on what's their most important thing.
And this is in a
So,
preliminary meeting, or is this the like the morning
preliminary
of the
meeting
shoot?
and even the morning of, I like to ask
Okay,
it twice.
cool.
And so let me kind of show you what I mean why that's
That was
important.
beautiful.
Oh, we're
That was really
we're doing
cool
all
with the
sorts of
arm.
stuff. We're doing all sorts of things. Don't
Because it's
worry.
also cool. Like some of these are obviously very like, set the shot, model stays in place, you take the picture, and then
Mhm.
others ones you have really great action shots where it's like clearly was taken in succession, and there's movement. So, two very different approaches, but both very successful.
Thank you. For some reason, you're just okay. Okay, I guess these are just deciding to be pixelated. That's a huge bummer. Um, so tip three. So I'm coming from this from the photographer and the art side first before we go on the business side. The important thing I wanted to point out, and this is a big note. Most of the artists you follow on Instagram, which you can follow me on Instagram at Aundre Aundre. Um, most of the people you follow anywhere, everything they make is not what you're seeing online. There's a lot
Right.
of boring, unsexy things. There are book cover sleeve portraits of artists. There's medical videos. There's a lot of things that aren't the things that you see because they maybe are a little boring. And what we're trying to sell on the internet as we advertise ourselves is that we're creative geniuses, right? So I want to take a minute and tell you to celebrate the boring. What does that mean? That means that often, even if you get like in the shoot, you're gonna get this like killer photo. Most of the photos you take, the images, like this is was work I did for a bank, right? These are people living their everyday lives, enjoying their children, like being silly and fun, and they look like slice of life. They might seem boring to you, but one of the best pieces of advice I got was knowing what you're good at. What I mean by that is like for me, I'd love to interact with my subjects, make them feel comfortable, warm, help them feel natural. And so it makes sense that eventually um clients from banks will say like, hey, I would love if you could photograph our new images that do a little storytelling about what it's like to be like a young parent in Brooklyn or what it's like to be a teen as you use your phone, right? Um,
Right.
these images are used in different ways. So um, as we've been thinking about this in our little criteria of how we think as artists, step one is really focusing on the details. Step two is understanding what things are the most important to the client. And step three is maybe putting your ego aside a little bit, knowing you're going to make a really incredible image, but often the boring things are the things that are going to have you come back and get more work.
Very,
Do folks have any
very well
questions
said.
or thoughts before I?
Not at the moment yet. Paloma says she's taking notes and not even a photographer, but I can see how this applies well with client work in general. Which, yeah, I think that in general, this is, I mean, the three tips that we've gotten so far, which was what, like clear communication with your client,
Yeah.
what would they be sad if they went away
Mhm.
from this project with, and celebrate the boring, I think are three things that even if you're a designer or illustrator, cinematographer, I think all of these things can all really work with you and a small business.
Nice. So
Also, know what you're good at. Would that be tip number four?
tip number four, you got to know what you're good at. I mean that. I think I spent a
What
lot
are
of
you good at?
time worried. I think I spent a lot of time worried that other people would think I like, I don't know, wasn't the world's greatest lighting technician. I'm not, but I hire people for that. Or maybe think that I don't know what. I would be very concerned about the things that I was less good at and trying to make them seem stronger. When in actuality, what I'm good at is interacting with other people, um, and being able to linger long enough for them to get comfortable so I can capture who they are. And it's really awesome to do that with non-models like the me's of the world and then models like the Ryans of the world.
Ah,
And so what does that look like? That looks like here's a shoot I did last year for Adidas, not a small brand. However, sometimes you can do sports stuff. Um, this Adidas shoot was supposed to be used by both Champs and Foot Locker, so they needed different things. And
right.
so just wanted to like really drill in on the value proposition. I think Champs was very focused on the court, so we had some stuff of people like this was more these things were more Foot Locker and more like fashiony, right? This like
Mhm.
you're catching me, in between looks. And then the champ stuff was like this, very like more performance focused. Like I'm about to get in the game. Shout out to this very sassy child. This kid was awesome. I loved him.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, do you
quick
meet with
word.
the models only on the day of, or do you get to have like meetings with them before?
If you get a fitting day, so another tip for the folks here, if you can, please get a fitting day. What a fitting day is the models come in early, they meet with the stylist, and the stylist has clothes pulled for them based on their sizes. So they can put a bunch of clothes on, take photos, the clients can look at the clothes and say, okay, cool. Sometimes when you don't have a fitting day, usually shoots, like big shoots, are on 10-hour days or 12-hour days. So that's how long from the very moment we start, not photographing, but start setting up to the moment we pack everything up. And so what that looks like is for this job, I think maybe we're on a 12, so like 8 to 8. And what that looks like is it takes about an hour, hour and a half, excuse me, like an hour and a half to 2 hours to get everything set up because you have to get the gear, bring it in, unload it, carry it. You have a lot of people that work with you. And so, if possible, I always find it helpful to have a fitting day so that the models can come in early, their clothes can be chosen, so that when they get there, we're not spending an extra half an hour, 45 minutes arguing about hoodies and shirt colors
Mhm.
and like stuff that like is really important, but stuff that can derail from the really expensive thing, which is the
Right.
shoot.
And then
So
that would be a separate day where it would like only be like what, like a 2 hour kind of estimation that you would have.
yeah, each person will come in for like 2 hours or so. They'll go through their clothes, and it's helpful because then I can say hello to them, the clients can say hello to them, and we don't spend the morning. And so sometimes, if especially if it's a shoot with a lot of different locations, I did a shoot last year where we like hiked, we like went foraging, we like did all this stuff in the city, and it was just helpful to say like this is their outfit for this, this, and this. So we're not spending time on that the next day. The most expensive thing, and this is for my artists working with small businesses and my small businesses working with artists, is time, right?
Right.
Whenever you're trying to make a visual art, you're trying to work with the sun, right? So whether you make like a one moment, I'm just gonna switch over to this so you can see it. Whether you're making like sweet clothes for Adidas or you're making a product like, where are you?
And
Even
also to
this
this, you're
is,
doing a lot outside. Like, are you doing location
yeah.
scouts on your own, or are you
Mhm.
also bringing models and the client to locations? Um, like, do you take like preview pictures of a location, say this is where I'd like to shoot this, or how do you get sign off for that?
Okay, so other thing. Sorry, so time is valuable. So let me explain. What I
Time is
mean by that
valuable.
is
Let's touch that first.
um this is for an early iteration of I think Light Phone. A couple years ago, I got to photograph this project for an incubator in New York City called, oh my gosh, New Lab. And New Lab
I
is
remember
cool. They
them.
had all these small businesses would be in there and they'd be growing pieces of tech. So this gentleman made this phone that was just a phone. Like I don't think you could text, or maybe you could get a text, but it'd be kind of hard to read. And so I had about an hour and a half to 2 hours with each small business so I could photograph things for them. And it was really, really fun to see like these like tap on electric bikes, like this light phone. And so it was really interesting because when I was scouting, there's an app I use called Sunseeker, that's really
Okay.
helpful. So basically, what I do is, if y'all can put that in the chat, basically what I do with Sunseeker is it shows you a 3D version of the room you're in, or so it basically does an overlay over your camera. I believe it's available Google Play, uh, Galaxy Store, App Store. It basically gives you an ability to see where the sun is going to be in the room that day. And so why that matters is sometimes with clients, and it's a good thing you brought this up. Let me see if I can pull these up.
And this is kind of how you also navigate your review process in Lightroom for the most part. Like you'll just see everything from the shoot and then kind of scan through to
Oh,
find the one that you're
totally.
looking for.
So what I do on shoots, and that this is what we're gonna get in next. What I do to like turn the corner in terms of taping time is usually if it's a project in a place I've been to before, I'll go through and make recommendations with clients. If it's a big enough project, there'll usually be a location scout, so I'll write out to them things that I'm looking for. Oh,
Mhm.
hey, I really want to see a barber shop. I really want to see, like, I want to see an older barber shop in a black part of town. I want to see a basketball court that's closer, that isn't surrounded by buildings, so there's a little bit more sun during sunset. I try to be as descriptive as possible. And then what I like to do if I can is I'll try to get in, if it's a travel shoot, a day or two before the client and go look at all the places myself. Because
Hmm.
then when I'm then preparing myself, when we scout, I've already done a pre-scout. I can then provide recommendations and have organized thoughts instead of trying to kind of guess. Um, and it's more helpful because I think once again, clients really value that level of caring about your time and your money. If you are a small business watching this, I would tell you when you have the opportunity to hire a photographer, you want to look for someone with a strong portfolio. But like if you've been married before, people that are getting wedding photographers know this. Often wedding photographers' portfolios will have all these like incredible images in them. And like, a broken clock can be right twice. What you're looking for is someone that can consistently do something, even the boring things well. And so if you could
Right.
ask them, hey, this is my budget, this is what I work with, and they're like, all right, I want to work with you should really be observing how they work along in the process. So if they're scouting, what are they talking to you about? How are they presenting their ideas to you? And where is your input being allowed? And where are they kind of running with it? So with the scouting, I'll try to grab different images. What I'll normally do is I'll get a deck or a treatment from a client and they'll say, "Hey, my name's Ryan. I make these really cool T-shirts that are for people that like to illustrate. It's like these fun shirts, whatever. And so you'll send me images of people that are wearing these shirts in colorful places in museums, etc.
Hmm.
Then I might go photograph a couple of museums and scout them out, and then I'll take your deck and the scout and match the images together to try to make some sort of schedule." Um, this is not that different than basically most things. It's just that I think folks are always surprised how long it takes to photograph anything. Just getting the light right so that you can get once again that this alcohol brand is very focused on like it's I think it's like high noon sunset, so they want like high key light. They want something that feels like warm and like something that like feels like it's including of people, right? And so making
Hmm.
sure that when we scouted, this backyard had enough light coming into this area so we could photograph this way to get this haze. Then having another part of the backyard for us to then kind of reverse the scene and have this look like something almost entirely different. And then our last one of being able to photograph back into the warm light and matching the warm of that circle with the other thing. So
And
the
having
question that
flexibility within the same
Mhm.
space, like being able to use it for more than
Yeah.
one thing.
The thing that Ryan just asked, which is a really good question, is how do I organize my files? Before I do that, I wanted to take a moment and recognize that many people aren't like, oh man, Lightroom, I know everything. The cool thing about Lightroom, and the reason why I think you should use it as a small business owner, is it gives you an opportunity to keep your files organized and for you to access them in multiple places while also being a robust editor. So, what does that mean? That means that everything I photographed, if you look over here, I have albums that I'm rolling over, labeled by year. And then how I like to organize my albums is in folders, and then I label each folder month, year, day, underscore client. And so it's, or excuse me, month, day, year underscore client. So it's really easy for me to look for images and say, oh, um, when I went to the Capitol with the North Face and I photographed Quanah chasing horse, what is that? Like, where is that image? It's really easy for me to go to the year, be able to see the client. If I hover, I can see the full name of it and I can move more quickly. And what's also nice is because of how I named them, it's easy to move between really quickly and say, okay, I know I photographed this in this year. I'm going to look for it there. And also, another little fun thing is in our search for Adobe in Lightroom, it lets you search for a bunch of different things. So let's say you're a small business owner and you have a camera you use sometimes to photograph your pieces. You also use your phone sometimes. You can actually go and search for camera right here. You'll see that everything I photographed in here was with this 5D Mark IV. But let's quickly go to some images I pulled from my New York Times portfolio review. So I know that there's a bunch of different stuff in here, things in here. Let's go back to camera and you'll see all the cameras I used to take these images. So, for example, in 2020, I got to test this Hasselblad medium format camera. So I can
Hmm.
click and immediately go, oh, yeah, this is that image I took in 2020 for this small business called Akron Street that was just showing the detail of one of the shelves. I should really love this photo. I love this little shadow. And
That's cool.
so what's nice is because there's all this data that we're getting um, from our cameras, I like that Lightroom allows me to search by each thing. So I can search. One thing I do a lot is I'll go through images I've taken, and sometimes I don't have time. I'll just quickly edit a few and leave. And so if I'm like, oh man, like let's go to like a job from 2018. Um,
Yeah, and as you navigate that, I also we're about 30 minutes in, so I just want to give everyone a quick little recap of what's going on. We're here with Aundre Larrow, and we're excited to be going through some of his portfolio and going through what it takes to work with small businesses, some great tips that you could use to apply to your own relationships with clients, and also just learn the ins and outs a little bit about Lightroom and Photoshop. Robert wants to know, do you use Bridge?
I don't use Bridge, but I'm going to explain why not right now. Thank you, Robert.
A
So
nice little
one thing I was going to
teaser.
point out is here's a bunch of photos I took during the creative residency I had with Adobe. I did this project where I traveled around the US and photographed people in a project called Stories from Here. So it was these micro stories about, hey, why did we move to America? Or why did we move to Austin? Or what brought us to Los Angeles or San Antonio? But I'm like, oh man, I photographed somebody in here, but I don't remember where the image is. I know that I edited it. So all I have to do is just go to edited. So normally you'll see here, it's like 4,000 images in here. And before you get on me about the number of photos, I'm not trying to hear it. It is what it is. So we just quickly go to edited. We hit yes. And then you'll see that we go from 4,000 to about 2,000. So now I can see all the images that I edited. And you can use a star system to look through images. So I can say, like, what are my 5-star images from here? Oh, there's none. What are my 4-star images from here? Just a couple. I remember because I posted these. So what are the images that I loved from this project? Lightroom gives me the opportunity to organize the files, organize them based on what I'll do normally is after I put images in, I will kind of star them or just pick them or both. It gives me an opportunity to find the images that I want really easily and also rate them. So when I'm coming back, I can quickly say, what's here, what's there, etc. So the cool thing about it is it gives me the opportunity to search by edited, by type. I can look for just a JPEG image or a RAW image. And that includes the ProRAW on your Apple devices, on your iPhone Pro Maxes and Pros. And I can even search by sync status. So like if something's been backed up or not. So it's a really, really cool tool because basically what it says is I can import an image and just have it loose in my library. I can also have it organized in folders and albums. Albums hold folders, folders hold albums, but I can keep everything together so that it's easy for me to navigate. If you go to all photos, I have just short of 300,000 images. So I can't just not organize them, right? And
Right.
so think about this in the sense of a small business. So let's say that you are taking headshots and you want to make sure, oh, what happened to the headshot I took? I want to quickly pull it, edit it, keep it moving. So let's actually take Sarai's gonna.
I love how you play with shadows. Like you don't have
Oh yeah.
fully illuminated faces sometimes. Like sometimes you cut it
Mm.
in half, but it's enough that you get the details on one side that it gives a full idea of a person. I think it's just a cool
Thank you.
approach that you have.
I appreciate that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back to the original image and I'm just going to show you an example of like why Lightroom is really lovely and why I like it a little bit more than Bridge. So we're just going to work through this image. It's a little flat, so let's just get a little bit of exposure. You want to be careful with exposure. I refer to it as like a dumb tool. Think about something like sometimes you use a hammer, but you really need a mallet or
Hmm.
you use like use scissors and you just need a little X-Acto knife, that's exposure. Exposure makes everything in your image brighter, which you know that. You've edited photos before, you know these things. But what's cool about Lightroom is there's other opportunities for me to edit it this way I want to. So quickly, we're going to go over and we're going to immediately make a mask. We're going to tap the masking tool. We're going
Now,
to hit
that's because
sub.
you're shooting in RAW, right?
Yes, but you can use the masking tool on a JPEG too if you want.
Oh yeah,
I'm
of
photo.
course. But I mean, when you're pulling exposure and you're pulling different like
Yeah,
information, like you're gonna get
yeah,
the best from having log on your camera.
absolutely.
Or even
Uh,
on iPhone, I think you can now even shoot in RAW technically.
RAW is a larger image size. Basically, what it means is when you photograph a JPEG, folks that are watching, your camera makes decisions for you and kind of takes this large file and compresses it so you have something that's a little bit easier to use. And it makes sense often. I think too many times we're obsessed with getting raw images. Like the photos I'm taking in everyday life, I'm not taking raw images because
Right.
I don't have the space to be doing all of that. And sometimes we don't need to be making like huge sweeping decisions like, oh, I shall have this. Like you can get it in black and white, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
when you're doing a shoot for a client, whether you're the client or you're the photographer, you really want to take a minute and make sure that you can get everything you need. And then if you need to make a change later, it's not that hard. So
Yeah.
we have a
A little bit
headshot. This
forgiving.
a little bit more forgiving. We have a headshot. This is a common case for small businesses. You want to make sure that you're getting the best image you can. So first and foremost, the reason I went to masking is photography is all about creating depth. Filmmaking is all about creating depth. My mom bought me this book when I was a kid called The Filmmaker's Eye. And I think
Filmmaker's eye.
the first line of the book was something like, um, a camera is designed to be like the eye, but unlike the eye, a camera or lens cannot discern what is most important in the frame. That is the image maker's responsibility. So what I mean by that is like we have a backdrop, so there's nothing too wild competing behind her. But sometimes when we're editing, we don't, instead of just using exposure and being like, man, this whole thing needs to be brighter, right? Now we're losing
Hmm.
detail in the back of this. Instead, just Control Z, I can go to masking. I can select my subject, which I did, and I'll show you again. If you hit create new mask, you can select subject, background, etc., or you can brush it in yourself. I can
Nice.
then make her just a touch brighter and then also make her just a little bit warmer. And now if we just take a quick moment and we hit our before and after,
Boom.
we'll see that she just looks, we're
Boom.
good, we're good, we're good. Nothing wild has happened. We've taken
Yep.
35 seconds. We can do it on our phones. The only reason I'm not doing this on multiple devices is because I do not have the patience to put these lovely people at Adobe through me plugging in 7 things at once. But the functionality on the phone as well as the iPad, y'all know I'm a big iPad fan. Shout out to the iPad Pro.
Uh-uh.
It is it's a really lovely thing because it allows me to edit in motion. And so the first thing that folks ask me about, like, why don't I use Bridge, is the first response I have is because Lightroom allows me to match things, like to put things into the cloud, so I can edit across multiple devices no matter where I am. Even if I just want to like not sit at the computer for a minute, and I just want to work, it's okay.
Yep.
So the next thing I want to point out, because we get here and folks are like, all right, cool, we have this headshot. Um,
Wrong.
and something that's cool, yes, wrong, is I can,
Also, hello to Omar over on YouTube.
oh,
Thanks for being
I'm
here.
so sorry, my bad. Um, you can quickly zoom in, and let's say I just wanted to be like, oh, hey, I just want to make sure that everyone looks their best, and I'm really worried about skin. I can like quickly make some decisions and like
No,
heal
wait, can
some
you real
stuff
quick
out.
walk through that tool that you're working on right now with
Oh,
all
I'm about
these
to. Oh,
circles?
don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. I'm going fast for a reason.
No, you
So
good.
what's cool about Lightroom is first we have this masking tool we just talked about. Then we have this remove tool. But we're actually going to pause for a second and go to versions. Versions is an interesting tool that Lightroom has. It's like a visual history of the image. This is a thing I think that's super helpful for small business owners and for people working with small businesses. For small businesses, you often end up with like one really good image or four really good images, and you want to use it everywhere.
Right.
And so you're like, man, like I need it in black and white so I can put it on this poster. I need to make sure that it can fit this. And so what we used to do is we'd like export the image a bunch of times and edit it. Like just it was just wild. Just gonna pour a little water. But now with versions, what you can do is you can say, you know what? I don't want to retouch anyone's face normally, so let's take this headshot and let's make sure that we have a version of it that is, you know, everyday life. And then like, if Sarai is a small business owner, founder of a small business, we want to use this for talks and stuff. So let me not make my headshot distracting. Let me like get rid of it, get rid of any blemishes.
Mhm.
So as you can see all the edits I made on this image over time. But more importantly, I can go to named, create a version, and we're just going to call this Ryan's version for today.
Like Taylor's version, but Ryan's version.
Please don't ever make that reference again. I'm
Ryan's
kidding. For all
version.
the Swifties here, I'm excited for you
I was,
because
I was gonna say, don't get us canceled. We don't want the Swift Nation to come and cancel us.
oh, I didn't. I I am a big fan of
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Die
Don't
Hard.
listen to me. I'm
This is
not.
going great though, by the way. Hello to Keys that's over at Behance. Welcome to the also Paloma's giving a 2 thumbs up to Voodoo Val saying that your model is gorgeous. What is
Mm.
this a shoot from, by the way?
This is I think I did like family portraits for
Oh,
like a
cool.
Logitech project a couple years ago. I like doing that. I think it's fun to like give people an opportunity to take photos. I think it's like a really beautiful thing to give
It's
people
a
like
way
a
of
chance
also
to feel seen.
feel seen and also just like it's crazy as you get older and you don't have, you know, school photo day anymore or it's really like a historical thing that like you kind of I mean you have nice pictures. Our phones are so great at taking pictures now, but there's something different about being, you know, in front of the camera that's just like, all right, the reason we're taking this picture is to document you, which is really cool.
Mm.
Also love the backdrop. Is it like
It's a
cloth or is
painted
it like
backdrop.
steel?
It's a cloth painted backdrop. The studio that I worked in was called W2F Dumbo. It
What's a
doesn't
Dumbo?
stand for what you think it stands for. This is a family friendly podcast. Uh, so it's not that. It's something else. But it stands for the initials of the people that founded it. But
Hmm.
you know, for funsies. While I have you for a minute, I'm gonna take a second and ask you and the people in the chat. Um, what brands do you think do photography well? And let's like sidestep the like, oh, I want to say Apple and Nike and Google. Let's like
Yeah, I mean,
sidestep
obviously
that.
Nike and like shoe brands always. Anything that's a shoe, like they always get great photography, I feel like.
But let's think
Um,
about like maybe a brand you've seen locally, something that has less than 200 million employees. Give everyone
right.
1 second.
I mean, like I on the subway, you see a lot of like the
Hmm.
Keeps and Hims and Hers. They have
Yeah.
pretty big they have pretty big employees, but I still wouldn't put them on the same as like Apple, you know?
No, totally not. Shout out to my friend Taylor that works there. She
Oh,
works
really?
there. Yeah, she's great. Also, prayers up for our lovely friend Colton. He is having a little hospital trip right now, but he will be
Oh
back and
no.
better than ever soon. A lovely creative, an incredible video editor, director, lovely human. Um,
No.
anyway, so ooh, what's Honeypot? Ooh, yes, Glossier also does take great
Glossier
photos.
is
You're
also a great
super right.
one.
So the point I wanted to bring up in asking that is all of these brands have established this level of consistency. For some
Mhm.
of us, we will see Glossier and say like, man, why haven't they hired me yet? Part of that could be that they haven't seen your work, and part of that could be, um, Childish Gambino said this a long time ago, and I think about it all the time. It's on camp. He said, you have to make people see you in another way. People see you how they want to see you until you make them see you in another way.
Yep.
And so by that I mean sometimes we find out when we get to work with these brands we're really excited about that it's actually pretty boring. We have to make the same images that they've made in the past.
Yep.
But to be attractive to them, we have to show that we have interest in photographing, filming, in a style that tells their brand story. And so not mimicking, but taking a moment to say, like, does my style really work with ASICs? Am I upset that I'm not working with ASICs, or am I upset that I feel like I'm not being seen? So that's my little shout out for the artists and the homies. It's like, think about what the brand represents, but think about how they might view you, and that could help kind of mitigate any disappointment you might be feeling.
And I also always tell college kids in particular, I'm like, don't put the projects from class in that you didn't like because that's what you're saying that you're good at. And, you know, just because it's a good project doesn't mean that you need to include it because you're gonna get the projects that you put forward. So
Yep.
you're in charge of showing who you are. So I think that's really
Yeah.
A hard pill to swallow because you put a lot of time into some of these projects, and even though you made it
Yep.
all the way through, like it turned out really well, and you're like, well, you don't want to do it again, do you? And you're like, no. I'm like, okay, then don't show it to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but since we're on the topic of portraiture, in this case,
Yeah.
I mean, especially with small businesses, like a lot of times, you need to take a staff-wide collection of photos, even if it's like, 10, 12 people. Um, are there any tips or ways that you would approach that? Whether working with the models and how you interact with them when you shoot, or setting up the space that you feel like are important things to consider when you're going into maybe just photographing humans rather than a product, because I know we were talking a little bit earlier at the head of the show. We were talking about talking to your client, knowing what you're good at, celebrating the boring. um what would you be sad if you went away with? But when it's specifically humans, what are you approaching those shoots with?
Okay. If you get hired tomorrow to take headshots, a couple things. Headshots take a long time, buddy. I'm gonna tell you right now, no matter what
Hmm.
anybody tells you. Years ago, I assisted this photographer, Wesley, incredible, really talented photographer. And a client hired him to take headshots of like 40 people in a day.
Oof. Ooh, how
Oh,
how
no, I'll explain. I'll explain. They slated everyone for like a 6 minute slot and about because maybe a 10 minute slot. But let's think about the math we talked about before, right? Like a 10-hour
Right.
day, 12-hour day. 10-hour day, we arrive, we get the gear comes, we have to set the gear up. So that's like 2 hours.
Yep.
Break down to another hour. So we're 3 hours into a 7-hour day.
Without any
Then
pictures.
legally we have to eat.
Yep.
Then we take about half an hour to test. So let's call it another hour. So now we're down to 6 hours. So now if we have, let's call it 60 people,
Yeah.
that means we have 10 people an hour.
Okay.
That's 6 minutes a person, right? Let's
Yep.
just call it that. So it's really difficult because you often, I would say, with headshots, so much of it is getting the person comfortable enough.
Yeah.
And that depends on the person. So things I've learned over the years. It's very helpful to tether. So tethering is a process of, one second, first camera that's next to me. 1DX Mark II, Mark III, lovely camera, mostly for sports, giant battery, we love it. Tethering is you pop this guy out. There are oh, some like USB-C slots. You run that directly into your computer. And then when you're photographing, it bypasses the memory card and goes directly to the computer in Lightroom. And it gives you the opportunity to show the image large as you're taking it. Most people that are getting their photo taken for headshots are not talent. They don't see themselves often. So do not have this facing them because they will be
Right.
so distracted that they will not be able to get their photos done. So
Yep.
that's number two. Number one is making sure they're comfortable. No matter what yeah, you could take a headshot in 30 seconds, but the likelihood is not going to be a great photo. The reason for that is the way I like to think about it, let's say we have 20 minutes. The first 5 minutes are just going to be adjustments of them.
Right.
Does my skin look right? If they have glasses, you have to make sure that you're not getting a reflection of the light across the glasses because that's a very hard Photoshop, by the way. Very, very, very difficult Photoshop. I just want to point that out. Or for me,
Yeah.
there's people that are better at it than I am. Um, so keys is that unusual. The reason it's different with yearbooks is with yearbooks, there's an old John Mulaney joke where he talks about children are like not supposed to be seen or heard. The idea that like you have no autonomy as a child, the idea that you as a professional are coming into work to get a photo taken that presents to your coworkers how you are. So in a larger company, people that haven't met you before, as well as a photo that could be used for when you speak in public, and a photo that like basically speaks to the whole world. As a child, your book is just photo is just there to be presented to your family. People that know
Yeah.
you, care about you, you
It's like a
just kind of
license
expected
plate
to show
portrait.
up and leave, right? Not the same with this. And also, if you check a Meet the Team page, when a company reaches out for you to work with them and you check their page and their photos are a little unnerving, a little rude, a little weird.
Just like a yearbook. Although it
Yeah.
would be really funny to have an actual yearbook as a get to know the thing. I'm sure it's been done, but that would also kind of be funny.
Oh, totally. I mean, my point is that if we if we don't take time to have our subjects feel comfortable, then we're going to take images that no one is excited about. It's just not really possible to in my opinion, to photograph adults in less than 15 or 20 minutes. What you're trying to do is you're trying to take a minute and get them to be comfortable. Then you're trying to make the lighting right, and then you're trying to photograph them. So if each of those
Right.
takes 5 or 10 minutes, you're looking at 20, 30 minutes. And you want to
Yeah.
leave there with a couple examples of people to be excited about. So if you end with an image like this, then you can say, okay, cool. How do I want to edit this? We're going to go to Ryan's version, and we're going
Mhm.
to get really minute here. So
Okay.
first, we're going to notice as we zoom in that we love, like, you're right, Sarai is stunning. You can do something. I'm going to show you how to do it handheld, and I'm going to show you how to do it with a mask. So first, we're going to just lighten underneath her eyes. All of us don't sleep. Capitalism's destroying us. And so something that happens often I like to do is I like to go underneath my subject's eyes and just get a little bit brighter. Just a
Are
little
you
bit.
also doing any like prep when you're doing portraits or anything? Like, do you have anybody put anything under their eyes or anything, or do you most likely like to do natural and then come back with photo editing?
Um, another tip I would say is just like a fitting's helpful. It's helpful for people to know what they're gonna wear, for them to understand what color looks best for them. So I think some of us want things to look good and they don't.
Oh
And then
gosh,
lastly, I
yeah.
think most importantly, having hair and makeup, not like a big, big hair and makeup to do, but someone who can take a minute and make sure that we look how we're supposed to look is what I would say.
And Keith is
Like
saying
someone that
true
can
on all points. Some photographers that do these actually usually make corporate employees pictures as well, which is a standard point. But sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
No, you're good. Can you repeat that point again?
True on all points, Andre. Some photographers that do those usually make corporate employee pictures as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we lit underneath Sarai's eye. Once again, we see her before and after, or even if we go back to our brush or back to our masking tool, one thing that's really cool is you see this little eye over here. You can quickly just toggle off what you did and on. So now we can see it a little bit brighter. Now
Nice.
let's delete these, or actually let's turn them off. And let's do it the other way. If we go to presets, which is our top point right here, we go to premium. Sorry, too many things open. We can go to enhance eyes. And even just hovering, you'll see how it's making your eyes a little bit
Enhance.
brighter. And you can change the amount so that you just are making the eyes a little bit brighter, a little bit sharper. I would also say, always say, especially in headshots, that you want to make sure you're nailing the eyes. By that, I mean, I would even say my aperture is a little too low here, where I'm missing the focus on this eye, but I have this and her ear. So just taking a point, taking a moment to make sure that your focus is set. So sometimes, although it's a little difficult, setting up on a tripod to make sure you're tethered is a great way to make sure that mistakes are limited. Your time is really important, but also weirdly, as a photographer or even or a filmmaker, the least expensive thing is actually you. Around you, you have location, you have the time of many people, photo assistants, the talent, like all the lights. And so just making sure that once you're there, you're mitigating risk will keep you getting hired again and again.
Okay, so you're working with a small business, and let's say
Mhm.
that they don't have the access to like lighting equipment or something. Is that something that you're renting out, or you're bringing as part of your offerings that you kind of have to own your own equipment?
I think it depends on the shoot. So I have a little bit of equipment, but it's important to kind of understand that depending on the shoot, it's different equipment.
Right.
So when we have when I have headshots, um I can use this silver reflector I have. I can use this I can use this continuous light that I have. I like to use continuous lights over strobes because it keeps the room a little bit less hot. And I can see the light more easily than setting it up to kind of pop. But the other thing I think I would kind of say after that is just understanding that that I don't have all the gear I need to, and because I live in New York, you live in New York, I don't have infinity space.
Right.
So making sure that when something is necessary, I use it, but it's not all the time. And so I would say that like I have a basic kit of gear I use. So like I have like a gimbal, I have a cinema camera, I have a tripod. I have my cameras, but sometimes on shoots I'll rent a Fuji GFX 100S 2, which is a medium format camera. I might rent a couple of different lenses for my Canon 5D Mark IV. Just kind of getting the right thing. For example, sometimes I'll get a macro lens if I have a product shoot. The 100 mm macro for Canon is a good example of like something that I will use only a few times a year, and isn't worth me spending a couple thousand for that.
Okay. Yeah. Because then it has just equity in other photo shoots that you have down the line. You can just divide that. Whenever I go snowboarding, I always take the ski lift ticket and I divide it by the amount of times that I go down the mountain. And then it makes me feel better
Oh.
about the price.
Um, how did you get into snowboarding? I'm just curious since we're already
How did I get
talking
into
about
snowboarding? Oh, we just
it.
went to the mountains when I was in middle school and I was like, I'm a cool middle schooler. I'm gonna snowboard.
It's
So
not because you watched Johnny Tsunami.
it's not because I watched Johnny Tsunami, but I did watch Johnny Tsunami, and I felt validated, but that was after I already know. So how to
Okay.
snowboard.
Okay.
But yeah, if you ever want to
Okay.
take pictures of me, cutting the powder, I'm here.
I would advise you don't say cutting the powder.
I realized I said it after
I
I
don't
said
know. I don't know if anybody
it.
else has watched, The Wire, Breaking
Oh
Bad,
no.
anything really.
No.
Um, let's just all focus on. I have this really lovely Iron Wine poster behind me. If anyone has
Okay.
heard the song "Flightless Bird, American Mouth," beautiful. All right,
You know,
back into it.
back to
So
birds too.
this is
You
a
were doing something with an aviary company, right?
yeah. So people are always going to need headshots. What do we want to do here? We have color edits we like. I showed you how you can use some of the adaptive presets. So there's like enhanced portrait. Let me just show you a little closer again. You see how this will soften her face a little bit. We have glamour portrait.
And we
So you
are
see how it
about an
just,
hour into it. So just for anyone
oh,
that's joining us still, we want to say hello. Welcome to Adobe Live. If you have any questions, please throw them in the Behance chat or the Adobe Live chat. We have plenty more Adobe Live coming up later today, but we're still here with Andre for the next 30 minutes, and we're going over some really great ways to enhance your connection with business owners, with small business, and being able to add great edits and great just approaches to photography with small business in particular. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Robert, in the Behance chat, is asking, how do you download your photos from your camera to your computer?
that's a good question. Ryan, I want to say for the remaining announcements and questions you have, I would love to get a spin from you again. It's
A
fantastic.
spin? Okay.
What's up, Peter? But yeah, how do I download the images? Okay, so generally, depending on the camera I'm using, I have some sort of memory card. So I have a lot of memory cards from SanDisk, from Lexar, shout out to Lemis at Lexar. But usually the memory card is something like this CF card.
And they're
Sorry.
not all made the same. So there are some when you're looking into buying an SD card of the
Oh, don't
transfer rate,
worry.
especially if you're shooting with video, if you're shooting on photo and sports, like that also is a little bit of like how you're approaching a shoot is with what different card you're going to be using, right?
Oh, yeah. And then I have some SD cards, and I have this thing called a CF Express, which is a fantastic card that writes really, really big files. So, for example, for the last couple of weeks, um, I was just using the Fujifilm GFX 100S 2. It's a big medium format camera. The files are giant, and the two switches from a double SD card slot to a single SD with a what is this? CF Express, excuse me. And it's just a faster read and write speed. So, for example, just a quick side note, if you are oh wait, something I can
Also,
do with
hello to
rubbers.
Peter. Hello to Annika. Good to have you guys all here. Thanks for saying hello in the chat.
Okay, okay. Sorry.
Also, you're talking about reading and writing. One of the things that is unique about SD cards, and I kind of was reminded about this literally this week because I was looking into it,
Mhm.
is that SD cards are not forever. I think some of the ones that you get in particular do damage every single time you read or you write from it. So it's something that like you're not gonna buy an SD card and it just be your one all take all for forever. As you transfer data, it's not like a solid state drive that can then refurbish the memory that you've used. I think with SD
Mhm.
cards, like it damages it, not damaging it in the way that like you think of dropping it in water, but damage it in the way that like there is a finite amount of times you can use an SD card, I think, right? I think.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm gonna just quickly. I want to answer the question that I think Robert's saying because Robert's saying they're having a hard time downloading images. So, quickly in Lightroom, there's an Add Photos button right here. If you have a card plugged in, it'll just populate the card. Let me actually see if I can do this now without breaking any NDAs. I don't think anything in here is NDA'd. Here you're going to see a CF Express plugged into a card reader, plugging into the front of my Mac Studio, which I love very much. I'm
Thank
going
you,
to
Paco,
wait.
for hiding the screen. Appreciate that.
Um, then I'm going to hit Add Photo. And then now you're going to immediately see that it's like pulling up these Fujifilm files. So then I can just hit Command A, review for import, and then it's going to go through and show me. I have all these images already added, but then I can just choose which folder, which album I put them in. So that's how I import images directly into Lightroom. The reason that I like to do this way, Robert, instead of with Bridge, is because then, like this morning, I had to get up and go to the camera rental house to return a rental camera. On the train, I could take some time and download an album locally to my phone, and then I could just make selects so that by the time I get back to my computer, I've already started to get through the process of choosing the images. And so it just kind of helps my workflow. And honestly, to be super honest, if I have all the time in the world, I'll usually make selects on my phone, like when I'm in transit. I'll get back, whittle it down on my computer, and then if I really can chill, I'll sit on the couch with my iPad, Apple Pencil, and really like use the Apple Pencil and make sure that my masks are exactly perfect to how I want them to be. And then I'll just export and get them prepped on my desktop and ready to go out.
Now, did you
And
say
so it's
you got the
just,
M4 iPad?
yeah,
You did? Did you get the new pencil? Did that come out yet?
I did. I do have the new pencil. It's fantastic.
Has
It is, yeah.
has it the rolling, has that been
Yep.
integrated yet?
We should make a
That's so
video.
cool.
That's what we should do. We should hang out and make a video talking about the new iPad. Not this video, because here we're trying to make sure that business owners feel cared about and photographers want to work with them, understand. But we will go from there. What's going on to all the people in the chat? I just wanted to make sure, Robert, that I answered your question. Um, okay. So what I was trying to get to here is like, let's make sure we have an ed that we like. For some folks that are like, man, I'll say Lightroom has come a long way. There's so many cool things it can do. The thing I was trying to show you earlier is we have this remove tool. We have this tool that has a little generative AI. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. But we can both clone. So I can like pick an image here and then have it clone stamp from over here. So you'll see when you're working on skin, it's tricky because if you pick skin from a different part of your face with different color, it's not going to look right,
Right.
right? And so instead, you want to use the healing brush, which then samples nearby pixels and works. So if we get a little bit closer, I know this seems gross, but the best way I can have it described is, will it be distracting? So we're going to tap here, tap here, tap here. And then now we're going to zoom out and we're just going to hold this. We're going to see our before, see our after. That's it. It's real chill. Nothing too stressful. And now we're not trying to make someone's whole face look like je ne sais quoi. We're just trying to get rid of the distracting pieces so our headshots look like our subjects. You know what I'm saying? If you want to
Right.
take it a step further, we're going to do one little advanced thing. We're going to right click. We're going to scroll down. We're going to hit edit in Photoshop. And I'm going to show you what I used to do when I used to edit headshots. Um, and we're going to go from there. Yes, everyone, the M4 is not a joke. All right. So you all know you're grown adults. You know how to make layers in Photoshop. I'm not going to spend all the time in the
Grown
world showing you
adults.
that. You're grown adults. I'm going to duplicate this layer, make it my base layer. What I used to do, if you really like, you're working with like a corporate client that wants you to glam everything up, is first I would go to my dodge and burn tool. I would,
Dodge is just bringing out shadows or bringing out highlights that you want to
yeah.
kind of highlight, right?
The reason I made a separate layer for this is because this is a little stronger of a dodge than I wanted. So here's a before and after. It's too much. So we're just going to bring the opacity down a little bit. So
Okay.
now it's nice and like bright. You have joy in your face. But here's what I really want to show you how to do. This is terrifying, by the way, everyone. This is as much retouching as I'm comfortable doing. We're going to make one more. Oh, not delete. Ooh, sorry about that, buddy.
And yeah,
I
so
learned
all of
this.
this is destructive. So that's why you kind of make also its own layer, right? Because
Yep.
you kind of still want to keep what you have on the bottom as the base layer.
Okay, now we're going to use this thing called the mixer brush. This is like this is like you have a corporate client and they'd want everything to be perfect. So you see I'm starting to like draw across.
And are you using a mouse right now or a tablet,
I'm
trackpad?
using two things. I'm using a Logitech MS Master 3S and I'm using an Apple trackpad.
Okay.
Um, so just quickly, we're like, notice just making little motions with this brush. You'll see what this brush does in a minute. But basically, it kind of helps. Like this, Soraya has great skin. She doesn't have these problems, but I have a lot of pores, like heavy pores in my skin. But you can see now as I drag from light to dark what's happening. Basically, smoothing.
Okay.
Y'all will see why I'm doing this soon. I promise it's worth it. But basically, it just like helps kind of reduce shadows and so for people with like more dramatic, less even skin, this is really helpful. With her, it's not as much of a problem. I should have done a little bit more spot retouching for like a few blemishes, but I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just want to show you guys. Okay, so now this is like our before and after. See how this face just looks a little smoother? Let's
Okay.
then bring this blend down.
That's a good point
Oh,
because
sorry,
yeah,
let me.
Peter's in
This is what the
the
blend looks
chat
like
saying,
at 100%.
"Oh, then you're done. It's good to go."
Yeah, no, we're gonna just go down to like 5%. And now you just see how we just soften just a little bit. We keep the texture on the face. Everything looks normal. And so now we have a headshot where we've gone from occasionally Lightroom likes to act funny. So I'm just going to show you the original art. Like I'll re-import to Photoshop and it'll act funny. Where we went from this to this.
Looks like two separate
So
photos. That's remarkable.
that's I think that's with your photography plan. I think you can just get Lightroom and Photoshop together, but like this is not super difficult. It's a little bit of spot retouching, a little bit of a mask, and then at the end just a little bit of mixer brush just to make sure that we are kind of accentuating and caring about faces.
Yeah, that's great. Um, Now, let's say that this was part of a series. Is there
Mhm.
any type of like presets or anything that you're using over in Lightroom that you're applying to
Oh,
everything before you move over?
oh wow, it's all right. Good question, buddy boy. So we're gonna go over Lululemon, and I'm gonna show you something that I learned working with these lovely folks. Lululemon is awesome. Last couple of years, I got to photograph for them. They're great clients. I get to photograph some of their New York City athletes. So portraits of like Marit Summers. Um, Shout out to Julia, tremendously strong and powerful runner. But as you scroll through, you're seeing a lot of black and white images. Um, Sydney's a tremendously powerful boxer. Um, but Lululemon has an interesting thing where they use black and white images in store.
Okay.
And then also their color images that they're athletes use when they're kind of sharing things on social. So when you look through, and if you're a Bachelor fan, that is Matt James.
Are you
Um,
shooting in black and white or are you doing post black and white?
oh, I'm getting it. No, all right. So, here's a portrait of one of the first people photographed last year. She was awesome, super strong and powerful. Love the image. We're great. But the final image that goes in store is black and white. And so I had to use presets and profiles to make sure that I had a consistent black and white across all of the images. So we pop in, you'll see that here I have a profile called black and white 02. So just a quick kind of description, presets, when you place them. Here, let me make a version of this so it's clear what we're doing. Call this Ryan's
Ryan's
final.
version.
We're gonna go to the original. You see this? See how this image is not only getting black and white, but it's cropping in. This is the
Yeah.
aspect ratio they need for these images. So I essentially had a preset that I would run on everything once I had the final selected. But let's just work through it here. So when you go into a preset, like let's just for argument's sake look at black and white presets versus black and white profiles. As I hover, you can see that the sliders all over are moving, all in the edit panel. You can see colors moving, you can see light is moving. Essentially what's going on is that this is giving you predetermined decisions to get the image that you want. That's what a preset is. It's decisions that you can then alter in Lightroom. Lightroom is non-destructive, but what's cool as a small business owner, as a photographer that works with small businesses, you have a starting point with a preset where you can quickly go, okay, wait, I need something for the summer. Let's just get it nice and warm. How does this look? How does this look? How does this look? I don't know. Okay, that's good. Great. A little shadowy. I can bring the amount down. Cool. That's it. A profile, on the other hand, is a starting point that you can change how the entire image's color is read. So there's neutral, there's standard, there's vivid, there's modern, but more importantly, there's monochrome, black and white, different black and white passes and filters. And so what I would do is I would go through my profiles and I would look. I made a decision on the black and white I thought worked really well, given the style of the edit that Lululemon asked for. And then I would make sure from there, let's do green filter. Green I like, but you're noticing I think there's a little too much shadow on her face. We can go back to our old masking tool, allow it to detect a person. And now I can hit create mask. I can make her just a little bit brighter. I can bring the shadows up a little less, and let's maybe bring the contrast down so it's not as crazy intense. And now we have an image that is just a little bit easier to read, has that level of detail, and
Wow.
lets you work from it. And
I
so the thing
love
I
that's
really
popping
like,
out on her cheeks right here.
oh yeah,
That's really cool.
we out here. I'm gonna pause for a second. I just said a bunch of stuff. How do people feel about what I just said?
I'm feeling positive about it. I feel
Mm,
like it's really cool to be able to see that a workflow it can be scalable, yeah, and still make considerable changes to photos. And you can see that from the before and after, something as simple as like an aspect ratio change is something that you would, you know, unknowingly maybe open Photoshop and make
mhm.
a process of doing one by one by one by one, which could literally take you hours, and you can do this in just a few minutes, which is cool.
Dude, when I was in college, I first learned about Lightroom. So the question we keep getting about Bridge, I'll explain this. I was using Bridge and Lightroom because I used to do Bridge and Photoshop. I worked at my college newspaper. And so that's how we organized images with Bridge.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was doing a lot of headshots for people. I was charging not nearly enough money, but I was kind of learning how to work with clients and headshots and graduation photos. And I remember I was watching an NBA Finals game with my friend, and he looked over and he was like, "Are you doing all of those on actions?" He's like, "You're like exporting like 150 images from this session, and then you're just leaving like for the folks who don't know, you can make actions where like it gets you to a point, you make a decision that then it continues the action." He was like, "Dude, just copy and paste, like, just copy the edits in Lightroom. Like, what are you doing?" And just learning that I can take a tool that's both organizational and edit focused and meld it together. Like essentially Lightroom is Camera Raw mixed with an editor. Excuse me, it's
Right.
Bridge plus Camera Raw. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so add that in with cloud storage, and it's this beautiful, really kind of simple's the wrong word, elegant tool. I think simple, people misunderstand simple as like a bad thing. I think something that's easy to understand is actually incredibly complex, but done well can be simple.
Right.
And so here what I did is like if you see quickly, we'll get out of Ryan's version. Go away.
No.
As you scroll through these, you'll see there's like all these black and white ones and color ones, like getting to photograph Matt James and you're seeing like him skating and stuff. Great, love that. Um, but just like understanding which ones were used for in store and which ones were used digitally. And like seeing the skate, like seeing that level of detail is exciting. Um, because like people read it differently. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, when a client says, hey, I need images to look a certain way, Lightroom is a great tool to maintain consistency. So, talking about maintaining consistency, we're going to make a quick pivot. So, I'm going to pause for Ryan to have a requisite, important, and helpful question.
Yeah. I will say that we do have about 10 minutes left, and I know you did mention that you wanted to at least highlight a little bit of generative fill. I just want to make sure if that's something you still want to touch on, that we hop into it real quick.
And first of all, I have 15 minutes left. You don't know me like that. Um,
We close out about 5 minutes before the top of the hour, so you got about 10
oh,
minutes left. Just to keep things exciting.
all right. Well, the thing I wanted to point out before I was so rudely interrupted
Yeah.
is that if you have an edit you like actually let's do shout out to this incredible Pilates instructor who was doing Pilates in the rain. If you look real close, you can see the rain starting to fall, and we knew we didn't have another opportunity, so we just kept going. You can really see it falling,
I
and
thought it
like
was just
him just
sweat
work.
like challengers.
Oh no, my man was with that. Of course you go see challengers. Of
Of course I'd see
course.
challengers. They got some great
Um,
shots in there.
so let's say we really like this edit of him. You can go over to presets and you can hit plus and you can create a preset based on the edit that you made. And so you see I have a folder called Blance
The
Behance
Lance.
stream test. And I can just, let's just call it Ryan's version because we're just going to keep it on topic. Quick side note, if you are, see you, Peter, if you are making presets to sell them, make sure you turn off exposure and temperature, just because anytime an image is taken, you don't know how bright or dark it is, and you don't know what the color temperature is, so there's no reason to have those things on. You can do that by just tapping here, turning off exposure, going to color, turning off white balance. Then you hit save. We like Ryan's version. And now let's go to a different photo really quick and be like, man, I love this image of, let's do Oscar. We go back, we go to your presets, I go to Behance stream tests, and then I go to Ryan's version. And I see what it looks like before, I hover and I see what it looks like after. And so you can have a preset that you use for Instagram, for Black History Month, for fall solstice, summer solstice, whatever, that can remain consistent by using a preset. One
And
more
you have
thing.
some free presets available on the Adobe
Oh,
website, right?
oh, do I? Do I? I do have some presets for free. Just give you a hard time. If you actually go over, I have some free presets and some premium presets. If you go back to the presets thing, go to premium. They have portraits for deep skin. These are ones that I got to develop with the lovely folks over at Lightroom on their team. I'm really, really proud of these. These are available if you have presets that you pay for. And then if not, I believe, is it user presets? No, it's not user presets. Don't worry about that. There's another one in here. Maybe it's portrait deep skin, or maybe this is a test one, but there are basic presets. Oh yeah, here it is. It's cut the end. It's called basics. And I got to work on these that are just a few that are really helpful to make sure that you get the undertones on skin properly. So, ooh, sorry about that. Let's just quickly remind folks you can follow me on Instagram at Aundre, Aundre. I also have a Discord server if you want to join that. Ryan can drop that invite link in the chat. It has a lot of like-minded people, mostly just me and Ryan. asking each other's questions back and forth. But let's just talk about this remove feature and why it's helpful. Now, as a photographer, let me keep it 100,000 with you. I do
Please
not
do.
want to I do not want people to just think that because we have these new tools, we can do whatever we want. We still have responsibilities as artists. I would say that there are tools to help us in times of need to make sure we're getting the images that we want. Allow me to scroll to a good example of when we want to use this. I'm looking for the specific image. Um, and I think it was actually from our film set. So that's not what we want to do. Let's instead go back to Lululemon. Let's go to images that are not edited. So I'll know these images that maybe I didn't like that much. Um, let's go to some people outside, and then let's work around the outside images. So we have a lot of hilariously powerful and strong people in here. Um,
Hilariously strong. I want someone to say that about me one day.
well, we all have dreams,
We all
and
have dreams,
I
baby.
dream that for you. So this is going to be a kind of difficult one, but let's try something out. I love just taking a tool and making it hard on everybody. Um, no, no. I don't want to put it in a bad position. But basically, what remove allows you to do is remove things, and um, instead of what we used to do before with remove, which is sample things around it, the new remove uses Adobe Firefly to rebuild it, which is crazy.
Right. It has saved
It's
me
just
already
actually
several
like one of
times.
the wildest things I've ever seen in my life. And I'm trying to get this specific image. Here we go. Jeez. All right. There we go. So let's say I just want to make it look like this man is like skating on the edge of glory. All right. You ready? Let's go to remove. Let's go to generative AI. I have
Buzz,
no idea
buzz,
what's going to
buzz.
happen here, everybody. I'm very nervous.
I have a good idea what'll happen though.
I mean, me too. It's only ever worked right, but Paco has seen my computer do weird things. Only when I'm streaming.
And you said the edge of glory, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if this is glorious.
So it just takes a
Whatever
little
that
bit.
manifests as you.
Oh, that's a good point. It says make sure you go over the shadow too. That's a little thing that people forget. They'll edit something and then forget about the shadow. Okay, so this first time it's confused because it's going through what it saw. It's trying, but I wanted to sample up there, but I can actually choose a couple different versions. So wow.
That's cool. That looks good.
And then oh, that actually just looks like more skate park. So I think that
Awesome.
actually is a spot that we like. So now we're
Okay.
going to sorry, I made a mistake.
Oh, back to the
I hit
hug.
Shout out to Sheldon for probably not being thrilled that I'm putting his photo all over the world, but he'll be all right.
Shout out to Sheldon.
We love
Anything he can
Sheldon.
take away.
Sheldon's a great Soul Cycle instructor if anybody is in New York and takes his classes. Shout out to Sheldon. Sorry,
Uh,
y'all. Let me just get
so
back to
as
where we
that's
were.
loading though, and we have a few minutes left, just one more time, go over some of the tips that we went over today. Talking to your client and having clear communication, asking them what they would be sad to walk away from the photo shoot from and what they most are hoping for from the photo shoot. Celebrate the boring, know what you're good at. You should get a fitting day in if you can.
Yeah.
You can meet with the stylist to get things fit in advance. You can work with the scout, but also great to work on checking out the locations yourself. You can download an app called Sunseek, Seek Sun,
Sunseeker, but you're close.
Sunseeker, and that'll
Look
help
at you paying
you
attention when I
identify
talk.
the things. And a big shoot could take anywhere from about 10 to 12 hours, but also make sure you remember that you need to eat and you need to set up and you need to break
Yeah,
down
you
and you
need to
need
eat
to do
legally.
all
If
these
you don't
things.
eat, yeah, if you don't eat, people like you have to make sure everybody eats or people get sued. So just
Get
make
sued
sure
and
you eat.
hangry, which is not a good combination.
Yeah, no, it's maybe the worst combination. Okay, let's see what happens. So on the computer you have to hit apply. The reason why y'all are excited about this is it gives us an opportunity. Thank you, Jack Watson. Um, to remove something that we don't have any control over. Sometimes we want to make an image. Whoa, that's wild. This is fascinating. This looks like the side of the Guggenheim. I'm not even mad at that.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
gonna
kind of
keep
here for
it.
that.
Oh,
We gotta
nope,
go to the
that's not what I
Guggenheim, by the way. They're bringing back a really cool text exhibit that I want to see.
Nice. The Guggenheim is beautiful. One of my fears is that the railings are kind of low.
Yes, you fall down the middle.
Yeah, one of my greatest fears is I'll just fall down the middle in front of,
Don't worry, I get
God
that.
and country.
Yep.
I'm not British. I just think that's a cool thing to say.
They go there, and this is total tangent. We're about to finish out though, but they go that in the second Spider-Verse. They're in the middle of Guggenheim and they fall down the
Oh
middle.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful film. Shout out to
Yeah,
Spider-Verse.
that's
But
fun.
basically, this just gives us the opportunity to really kind of put us in the head of the skater. I wouldn't. Did this give me a person? What? Dude, it put
So
a
yeah,
person here.
what if you looked in and it was just you? Somehow it edited you into there.
But think about like
But
how much more this you see his brain as a skater. Anyway, sorry, I've now like fanned really, really hard. But anyway, we are
it's
about to
great.
approach the end of this. You are a talented person. If you want to work with a small business, reach out to them, ask what they need, ask for their budget, and then work with them. The thing about small businesses is you're working with people that are doing 17 jobs at once. So sometimes when they tell you that's all they can afford, they mean it. On small business side, understand that the process of creating the image that's right for you isn't about perfection. It's about just like everything else, it's about working to get closer to being able to communicate with your clients. We need photography and filmmaking because it allows us to exist in a digital space and establish who we are and what our values are as businesses. So I hope that for the artists in here, you can connect with clients and feel good. And for the clients in here, I hope you can connect with artists and feel good. But either way, I'm really thankful that you're taking time to listen to myself and Brian spend a lot of time talking about birds and other things that I don't think anyone specifically signed up for, but we can do a bird video soon. And until then, I just want to say I love and appreciate it. I'm thankful for you. And please find me on the internet if you have any questions.
Wait for that bird drop. And yeah, if you guys didn't happen to catch the whole show, you can always check the replay out here on YouTube. Make sure you stay tuned. We will be right back in just a few minutes with Voodoo Val, and we'll be going over some really fun stuff, more photography for this photography day. But thank you so much to Andre. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you to our mods, and we hope to see you guys right in the next episode. So thanks for
Yeah.
watching. Bye.
Bye.